Let me paraphrase again what Stephen Jackson just said in a soundbite that we played moments ago. Essentially, he said, once the NBA season starts up again, that's what everyone will be focused on. That's what everyone will be talking about. And essentially, they will stop talking about all the things that we've been talking about. So what is your reaction to that thought? That seems to be the concern he's expressing. Stephen A., what do you think of that?
Well, I respectfully disagree with my brother Stephen Jackson, who I got a lot of love and respect for. And the reason why I respectfully disagree is because if the players themselves, the professional athletes themselves, the sports world itself is committed to maintaining the level of attention that they've brought to the equation, I don't think it subsides in the mind's eye of the viewing public. Not to mention the fact, let's remember what the goals are here, okay? We want to eradicate racism, racial oppression, and things of that nature. But how are you going to go about doing that? I've been talking for the last 2 weeks. How about making it a federal hate crime for a police officer to shoot and kill an unarmed black man? How about contacting the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, led by Sherilyn Ifill, who's done an outstanding job? She used to work in concert with former Attorney General Eric Holder while he was the AG with the under the Obama administration. The groundwork has been put into place. The objective of professional athletes and the public at large is to elevate the level of awareness and transform that to people who have the knowledge, the know-how, and the power to do something about it from a legal perspective. When we're talking about getting things done, that's the kind of language we should be speaking at this particular moment in time. Because simply protesting in the streets, okay, is not going to get it done. I'm not saying you don't do it. I'm saying you don't limit yourself to it. You got to have a plan of action, and the action has to be profound in a sense that legitimately causes change, as opposed to allowing us to receive lip service and thinking that's going to get it done. I'd rather have federal legislation, fellas, than guys taking a knee. I want both, but I'd rather have the federal legislation. Guys taking the knees are symbolic, but in the end, without the federal legislation, what are we really talking about here?
Jay Williams, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll just be additive to what Stephen A. Smith said, because I said this in the first hour, and both those comments mirror each other about where my head is as it relates to whether players should boycott or not. I disagree, vehemently with, Jax and Kyrie on this, and we all are in this together first and foremost. But, Stephen A., you said it. What are actionable items that you can take? And imagine this: if you were an NBA player, Adam Silver, for most of his career, has been seen as progressive and also practical and reasonable. If you have players have a set list of requests that you want your individual owners to address state by state to push for legislation, then make that contingent upon you playing. And I do think by playing, by having a platform, which is the largest in the world each and every day, imagine if players, to every question that was addressed their way, in unison, responded by saying, Black Lives Matter. Or if they responded by saying Rashad Brooks, Trayvon Martin, Ahmaud Murray, like going through all these names and answering all these questions, that allows you to sustain the conversation for another 2.5, 3 months. And your voices will be uplifted instead of you deciding not to play while other sports leagues will play, which will be a distraction for Americans. And then your voices, unless you're LeBron James or Kevin Durant, will be diminished and you won't be heard because people will move on. So how do you keep that conversation at the forefront, which I think is imperative for sustainability?
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, here's the thing. Let me say this to you, Greeny. Here's the bottom line. Listen, nobody is advocating not taking a knee, not protesting, not joining the fight to bring awareness and attention to the plight that has plagued our society. Nobody's advocating that. Let's be clear. But in the same breath, what is that alone going to accomplish? I got to be honest with you, Greeny. Somebody black got to say this. So I'm going to say this, okay? I appreciate the level of sensitivity that has been exhibited by white folks throughout America, particularly over the last 2 weeks. We need to listen. We need to hear. I get all of that. But if you think for 1 second that is enough, please, it's not. Let's be very, very clear about that. I don't give a damn about anybody's apology. I don't give a damn about anybody's elevated level of sensitivity. I don't give a damn about people talking about, well, guess what? It's okay to take a knee. Let's do it. Let's do it. Baker Mayfield, J.J. Watt, and others. I incredibly appreciate that. I understand that. But without real change from the power brokers, then it doesn't matter. So when we talk about stuff, when we talk about an end game, and I'm sure Stephen Jackson, this is a goal of his. Obviously, he was hit on a personal level because George Floyd was his boy, and I totally understand that. But we got to talk about federal legislation. Make it a federal hate crime, okay? When you had the incident with Eric Garner in Staten Island, when you talk about what transpired in Newark, New Jersey, Ferguson, Missouri, and beyond, when we talk about consent decrees, that's basically the DOJ, the Department of Justice, negotiating with police departments to hold police officers more accountable. There's groundwork that has taken place in the United States of America over the last 5 years. We need to be pushing for more of that throughout the nation to make sure that police officers are going to be held accountable. You don't get to skirt around issues, okay, civilly, not just legally, okay? You got to do all of these things. What's the end game here? In the end, that's what we're talking about here. Nobody disagreed with Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, not if you're black. We appreciate the fact that he took a knee. We appreciate the reasons why he took a knee. We understood all of that, and we sided with him 1,000%. Where people went their separate ways was that after the kneeling took place, we said, now what? What do you want, and how are we going to go about getting it? And there didn't appear to be a plan. In the end, that's what this comes down to. The protests are definitely legitimate and profound. We get all of that. We can't ignore it. Pay attention to it. But what's the end game? We have to answer those questions. And without answers to those questions, we damn sure shouldn't be talking about not going back to work because of racial oppression. If that's the case, black folks would have been unemployed for centuries now because we've been dealing with racial oppression.